The Leica M10 Monochrom is a fantastic camera. I love shooting black and white with that newly developed sensor. But one thing Leica is missing in general are shift lenses for perspective correction in architectural photography. And I was using in the past shift lenses from other brands, like here from Nikon. This is an old school Nikon shift lens, and used them with adapters on my Leica SL2 and on other Leica cameras from the M series. But there are lenses from the Leica R series where you have perspective correction, and that's what we are going to look at in this video. So I got one of those lenses. I'll share more details in a moment. Let's get started. So this is the shift lens I'm talking about. PC stands for perspective correction, and I'm very grateful to my friend Ivo from the Leica store in Zurich, who lent this lens to me for a test shooting from his private collection for a few days, and I really enjoyed that shooting, so thanks very much for this, Ivo. So let's now look at the lens here, and first of all, it's a beautiful build. There is an aperture ring you can turn from the widest open 2.8 up to 22. And there is a focus ring, which is, like always with Leica, very smooth, and the minimum distance is about 30 centimeters here up to infinity, and you can turn that wheel and enjoy it. And then the specialty of that lens is the shift functionality. So you see here how the lens is shifting across the sensor plane, and you can use that to correct these falling lines I showed before in the little intro video when I had this round view in Zurich, and that's the main purpose of this lens here. There is also rotation functionality, so you can basically rotate if the lens is mounted on the camera to get, instead of a horizontal shift, a vertical shift. And that's also very useful because it helps you to do panorama stitchings if you can shift in both directions across the horizontal axis as well as across the vertical axis. Let's quickly look at the other components of the lens. So there is a lens hood, which I unscrew for a moment. And below the lens hood is a very special filter which Ivo gave to me, which is protecting the main glass and optics of the lens. In general, you should know that R lenses are no longer produced by Leica, and you will need an adapter from the R mount to the M mount to mount it on a Leica M camera like the M10 Monochrom, or you use an adapter from the R mount to the L mount if you want to mount it on a Leica SL2 or Leica SL, for instance. In general, looking at that lens, the build quality is beautiful. It's very well made, and even despite the fact that this lens has quite some years behind it, it's still looking brand new, fresh, and fully functional. So before I come to actual samples, I want to show a little bit of the workflow with a camera like this, and also focus on the lens again. So first of all, the lens is now mounted on my Leica M10 Mono. I'm in single shooting mode. I have the lowest ISO value you can get on an M10 Monochrom, which is an ISO of 160, and I have both RAW and JPEG images with the full size and the full frame, of course. I also want to quickly show in the menu that the R adapter for the M series is recognized by the camera, so it's here selected, and that means I can use that lens in the way I want to use it. I'm also using self-timer, and here I'm looking for focus, and the good thing is you have focus peaking, which will be shown in a moment, and I can also zoom in to see if what I'm looking for is accurately in focus and sharp, and then I release the shutter and get my first shot like always, and then of course the next step is to check the image if it is to my liking by going on the image preview, zooming in and looking at the result. And like always on the M10 Mono, it's very sharp, it's very accurate, and I like the way this camera is doing photos. The next thing is I was not fully happy with the exposure. I wanted to have more contrast, so I made the shutter speed a bit faster to get a bit more contrast into the image, and then of course I released the shutter again to get a second shot, and that shot I think looks even better. I level metered the camera for that shot, and I did not yet use the shift functionality, so what you see here in the preview is that the church towers are kind of cut off, and that's what we are going to correct next. But first let's look at the sample, how this image looks, and let's briefly discuss the result from the M10 Monochrom. It was a good idea to make the shutter speed a bit faster to get more contrast into the image, but the towers are cut and we need to correct this now, so let's have a second look at that shift lens here. So since we want to shift in vertical direction, I have to rotate the lens in a way that I can use shift functionality across the vertical axis, and that's what you see here in that video. Looking at the lens from the opposite side, there is a little mechanical slider which you can use to open the aperture, and you need to open it to make the aperture ring effective. As I said before, the focus ring is just smooth and very well built, and it was a pleasure shooting with that camera. The aperture ring has the usual clicks, so all fully to my liking. So let's now do the vertical shift here, and if I turn that shift wheel, I get the shift of the lens with respect to the sensor plane up or down in vertical direction. And what I want to do, of course, is I want to have less water and more of the church and the buildings, and that is exactly what you see here in that video, how I'm adjusting the lens. I'm now making sure everything is in focus. You see the focus peaking in red again on the church tower here, and then I release the shutter and use the self counter to get my shot onto my SD card in the camera here. So by shifting the lens, I got less foreground with water and more background of the buildings, no falling lines, good structure in the sky, and in general a dramatic looking, very nice picture in black and white. Using shift functionality on a different location and stitching horizontally this time, 3 images together created this black and white picture here. And I see lots of structure and details in that picture. It's a nice looking picture with a very wide angle and a very high resolution because it's 3 images stitched together. And of course in post you can cut them into a triptych and present them in the way you see here on display, which creates a very different atmosphere, of course, compared to what we saw before. Stitching images vertically can create a square aspect ratio and again a high resolution, so this is another result here. I hope you enjoyed that little video. Shooting black and white is just beautiful. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Thanks for watching and peace out.